This is Helen bringing you another episode of the Summoning Circle. Today's episode is very special because it's the first time we've had two guests summoned at once. For a conversation about level design, it only felt right to have both of these guests here because they work together so closely to bring our levels to life. Please welcome 3D artist and level designer Mauro and concept artist Gaby.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the introduction, Ellen.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm so happy you both could be here at the same time. The way you guys work together is a really interesting part of what makes this game. So this is great.
Really glad to be here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Of course. So Mauro and I were talking the other day about how when you play a pixel game, you kind of start to expect seeing hallmarks of that era of gaming, like repeating trees in every landscapes or enemies that are just palette swapped but are basically the same everywhere you go. And in Forgotten Runiverse, that isn't what you get. It seems like there's something new around every corner. And I'm just wondering, because of that experience, how it's been for you guys. How has the pixel design constrained or empowered you as designers and artists?
It has definitely constrained us when designing the levels and when designing the world. We don't get infinite assets or infinite sprites, so we still have to use a lot of the same sprites that you might not see. And I'm glad that you're able to say that it feels new and it has variety. That feels
certainly
that's great.
Fooled me.
Nice, because that's what we want. That's what we want to achieve. So we definitely have to work around that. We have to make sure that the player doesn't get stuck on random collisions, doesn't find sprites or nature that doesn't belong there. In terms of terrains, nature, animals, and that we still have to think a lot about what would look right for the player.
Yeah, I think creating video games is really restricting. Always, you always have a graphic budget that you have to follow, and in pixel art, it's way more restriction because I come from a 3D background, and when you are placing an asset in a 3D world, when you place it, you are not going to broke anything that is near. You can just move the things around and it's okay. But here, when we place something, we should be very careful where we are going to place it, because we can broke what is just to the side or something behind. So we have to be very precise where we are placing what we do in the world. So restriction mostly, but the final result is beautiful and brings a lot of nostalgia. And I think that's nice.
To add a bit on what Ma was saying, for anyone that's wondering, we have to work on layers. So it's I think of it with the programs that I use when I illustrate or when I draw. So think of it like Photoshop. You have all the layers, and that's what we have to be careful of. There are specific layers, the bottom layer, top layer, and there are stuff that can break very easily when placed in the world, and that's what Mao is referring to. So top layer is what goes on top of the player, what basically shows in front, and bottom is what the player walks in front of. So we have to be very careful of that, very careful of collisions. It can break very easily. So, and we also have a limit of layers, so it's not as free.
So what you're telling me is that this is all an illusion, and really when I walk through the Runiverse, I'm walking through a Photoshop level.
Through Photoshop.
I am
basically.
It's always an illusion.
Yeah, it's always a magic trick.
That's rad. So Tina was also telling me that a lot of iteration comes from the process of translating concepts into that pixel design. Gaby, I'm wondering if that process has changed your whole approach to concepts.
Oh, definitely. It has changed a lot of how I approach it. I come from an illustration background. So at the beginning, I used to render and to try to make a lot of the designs very polished. But since it's concept art, we're trying to make a guide for the artists and for the pixel art. It didn't quite work very well, so I had to learn a lot. You will see, I think, it shows a lot on the ones for the pyramid, that was my first one. And that's where it basically shows that I tried to make everything look very polished, very rendered. And well, the more I worked on it, the more I worked on dungeons and interactables, I learned what's easier for both the art team and the game. So I've had to adjust and work around the pixel limit.
So these Moon Temple designs, are these some of your more recent ones that show that approach?
Yeah. That's actually the last ones that I did. The ones for the Moon Temple. And there you can see that I, of course, took an approach that's more close to the game, where it's like I have to draw from the perspective or closer to the perspective of the game. I'm also thinking now of big shapes, big silhouettes, that are readable to the player and that are also interesting to look at. And from that, everything is made, thinking of the game's perspective, the dungeons vibe that we want to give, that we want to show, and of course the mechanics that the players will encounter while playing the dungeons.
I've noticed that the dungeons have these interactable elements, and it makes it really fresh for the players. They can complete it in different ways all the time. I'm wondering if you, Mauro, have a philosophy about design that led to that? Can you talk about the interactables?
Yeah, the design directive was already in place before I got into the team, but the main idea always is to give the player options. So if you want to explore the lore and get into the detail, you can do that. But also maybe you're a player that wants to do a speed run. You just want to farm. You just want to run across the levels that we worked so hard to make very beautiful. You are going to pass through them at the whole speed and get all the stuff and go out. You can do that too. However, in open world games, even if you are in an interior, giving the player agency and freedom comes with the nature of the world. So some players love this, and other kind of players just feel overwhelmed by the amount of variety and they prefer to be guided. So we try to have both in the dungeons and in the world. So we try to guide, but we also try to, it's open world, just go explore.
Yeah, I think that really comes through. I know I've really enjoyed how fresh it always feels. So talk to me about you two working together. You have this really neat dynamic, levels and the style and look of the levels. All of that comes through an iterative process between the two of you. Can you tell me how that is?
Sure.
Okay.
If you want, you can go. Oh.
Okay. Communication is key. So we rely heavily on Discord and we have daily meetings. So stay in touch with everyone. We are used to work together as a team. So we get together and share the screen to review each designer work. So everyone can learn from everyone. That's really good. That can strengthen the bond between the designers. And since it's that important to work together, usually we divide into smaller teams to tackle different tasks. We are always encouraging communication and cooperation between the team because we are working with other departments that do other stuff. So we need to talk a lot because it's a lot of content.
Right. We're entirely remote, so
yeah,
I can imagine that's its own challenge.
Exactly. Yeah. And specifically in level design, one thing I love about this is that you have to put your ego aside because the output of your work will get mixed together with the other designers. And you enter a world that is made from the work of a lot of people. So maybe you can go in there, I made that tree, I placed that rock over there, but that doesn't make any sense because it's a whole world. And I think that's really good.
We all consider in the team that communication is a top priority. Aside from getting feedback and having reviews together and all of that, we also have established very important points of contact with other teams in our workflows. And that makes everything easier. It helps us solve any misunderstanding that might arise from the constant back and forth. Since we're working all the time remotely, there's a lot of things that might get misunderstood or not get across. So I think having those points of contact is always very important. Everyone in the team is always super open to answer any questions, to help if needed. And we're always supporting each other and working together. I think it's a great like team environment.
Yeah, that really comes through. So I'm glad you guys could take some time today to teach us a little bit more about, well, honestly, how complicated pixel designs are, no matter how simple they look. I mean, even making something look simple is obviously really complicated.
Thank you so much for your time too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Helen. It was great.
Yeah, I'll see you around.
Okay.
See you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
They're like a house, a reality house with the designers working live.
That would be fun. A reality show.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I want
No,
reality
don't
as
see the
possible in the
designers.
virtual world.